From Canada, Citizens Forum, where we look at the important issues of the day through a lens of democracy and media and try to figure out, how do we build a better country for ourselves? Hello, welcome to From Canada, Citizens Forum. It is Saturday, May the 3rd, 2025. My name is Jack Etkin in Victoria, British Columbia. I want to talk about how to build a better democracy in Canada. Unfortunately, that's a topic that not a lot of people are interested in, but I want to make the point that democracy is important. People have fought for democracy forever, right? And the reason they fight for democracy is that democracy is important. Here in Canada, we've been told our whole lives that we are a great democracy. So there's nothing to fight for, folks, because we are a great democracy. But I don't think we are. You know, I've gone looking for the democracy, as many of us have over our lifetimes, and it's not easy to find. And that's because really we do not have much democracy. And it's never talked about, right? The pretense is from the top, we are a great democracy. No questions are ever asked by the media or our politicians about that statement. But that doesn't mean there aren't questions. It only means that the people who own our politicians and own our media don't want those questions about our democracy ever being asked. And I think, for example, the housing situation in Canada would be much, much better. The poverty situation in Canada would be much, much better. I think the rich would be less rich and the poor would be less poor if we had more democracy in Canada. I think our healthcare system would work a lot better for us. I think our health would be better. And I think we'd have better cities, better communities, better schools, and et cetera, if we had more democracy, because then we could get more of what we want instead of everything being pushed down on us by the corporations and the 0.01% who really control Canada. So what can we do? I think, this is only what I think, that first we have to understand that we've lost our democracy and that getting it back is important. We have to see that our governments don't really work for us. And that is a big problem. And I think I can make that statement. Our governments do not work for us. The people we elect cannot work for us, because if they don't do what they're told by the leadership of their political party, whichever party that may be, but especially the governing political party, if you don't do what you're told, if you do, for example, what the people who elected you and who pay you want, if you do what they want, you're going to lose your career. You have to do what the party leadership tells you. That's the rule, or maybe even the law in Canada. And in that kind of a situation, it is not a democratic situation. And if we think we're going to get democracy out of that kind of situation, we're living in fairy tale land. So we have to understand that we've lost it and that it is important. And step two, we have to begin to learn about democracy and how we can be citizens in a democratic society where we have a voice. What's our role? Right now, our role is basically Zerosville. We have no role in our democracy. You know, we get to vote every 4 years. We just voted for a federal government, but now that they're elected, they're basically gone from us, just as the Trudeau government was gone from us, and our provincial governments are largely gone from us. We should be the directors of our nation. We the people, not me, but we the people, and what we want should be of some importance. And we don't want, for example, homelessness, but they don't care what we want. Step three. So again, the second step is we have to learn about democracy and how to make our political parties democratic, how a real democracy should function. And again, I think if we had that, we'd be a lot better off. Step three, we have to understand the power of the media. And we have to understand that the media we have in Canada, they do not work for us. They are owned by and they work for big business. So your favorite corporate journalists, and it doesn't matter if they're in television, radio, newspaper, online for the big corporations, doesn't matter. They don't work for you. Just look at who they do work for. They work for, and the same is true of CBC. They have to do what they're told. And the ownership of CBC, which is our government, believe me, they don't work for us, right? So and there are things that cannot be talked about. For example, a fairer tax policy. When do you ever hear that talked about anywhere in the media? Or let's have a look at our democracy and see if we can have a better democracy that gives people more control over what's going on in our cities, provinces, and the nation. But that's never talked about, right? That idea, let's look at our democracy. And right now it's interesting. Right now we're being told that Western separation is the next big thing because the oil companies aren't getting everything they want. That's the media story because they always want us divided and separated and fighting each other, right? But let's have a look at the power the corporations have over our governments and the power the corporations have over our media. Well, that story is never going to get talked about because they don't want us talking about that. So again, here comes Western separation, right? And they'll build it and we'll be in a tizzy about it or not, but it doesn't matter because that will be the story if they want it to be the story. And we'll focus on that. We'll be focused on that while the disaster of the poverty and homelessness and healthcare and sickness and et cetera, and the lack of democracy, just a lot of things could be better. And again, we're lucky. We do live in a country that is still at the top, but we've been going in wrong directions for a long time. So the power of the media to control the story and the pretense that they work for us, we've got to understand that, I think. And number 4, we need a new voting system. Voting systems are important. They really can impact the power that people have in our nation, which in most of Europe, they have proportional voting systems. And I think that's one of the big reasons why for the last 30 or 40 years, Europe has really led the way in workers' rights and an egalitarian society where the rich aren't too rich and the poor aren't too poor. They have pretty good healthcare systems, certainly better than ours now. And better provisions for health and safety in their food supply, right? They've got all of that because they have proportional voting systems, which gives people a little more power. Now, there's big problems in Europe, and they're getting bigger because at the top, proportional system does not solve the problems. It's a step in the right direction, but more has to be done. So we should be have an intelligent analysis and discussion of voting systems, and then come to some decision. And the next and last thing I'll talk about is we need to reform the way our governments and our parliaments work, because right now we don't have any control over them. And if we're going to be a democracy, then we, the citizens, should have total control over our governments, or at least some control. But the way it works is once they are elected, they have all the power, and we are on the outside looking in, and that's got to change. The role of the people we elect really should be to go out into the communities, find out what we want, and then make that happen. But instead, the way our governments work is they go to big business and the 0.01%, and they say, what do you want? And then that's what they do to us. And, the housing disaster is a good example of that, but I'll give you another one. It is just, sort of an everyday thing. Canada cannot sell meats, and I'm not sure about the other meat products, but beef, into the European Union because the European Union says the way we raise our beef with the injections and vaccinations and growth hormones that is fed to our beef, so agribusiness can make more money, the European Union says those things are dangerous to people's health, and we don't want them. So Canada cannot sell beef into the EU. But Canada does sell a little bit of beef into the EU that's raised here in Canada. But that beef has to be raised to a higher standard than what we get. And the fact that this happens and they don't even tell us about it, I think says a lot about Canadian democracy and the Canadian media and just the way we're treated, right? So we've got to reform the way our governments work. We need a new voting system. We need to understand the role and power of the media. And we've got to make sure the media works for us. It's owned by the corporations. We think it works for us. Yeah, right. And we've got to see the importance of democracy in our everyday life. And then we have to fight for it and get it. And we can. And here's two ideas. One, people should join their favorite political party, whatever that may be, and get involved and join with other people and work, because it's going to take work to democratize your political party, whichever party that may be. Just make it democratic, not so that you get what you want within the party, but that the party members as a whole get what they want, because that's how a democracy has to be. Right. And I think if we can do that, then the country is going to, even if we can take small steps, every small step we take is going to move the country in better directions, I think. So that's one. And the second way is to start a democratic political party, because believe me, none of the rest of them are. I don't think. So thank you very much. Thank you for watching this segment of From Canada, Citizens Forum.